In today's market, renting can actually beat owning. Let's prove it with the numbers. Housing affordability is at multi-decade lows. If you compare home prices to incomes, it's pretty clear. It's pretty terrible. The fastest way to decide if you want to buy or rent is to use the price to rent ratio. The higher the number, the more it makes sense to rent. In Southern California, you're seeing over 20. That screams rent. If it's below 15 in your area, that starts making more sense to buy. To calculate it, you get the home price and you divide that by the annual rent. I personally think a recession is near. The economy, the assets, they're being propped up by the massive national debt. It's so hard for people to afford homes. I think it has to come back to reality at some point. I think we're long overdue for an actual recession. If I'm right, home prices could decline over 30%. In that case, you'd be very happy that you chose to rent instead of buy. Because if you did buy, you'd pretty much be stuck. The value of a $900,000 home could go down $270,000. But if you rented, it could potentially give you a massive opportunity. You could buy at a steep discount. I personally think we might soon have a once-in-a-lifetime buying opportunity. If you buy a house, it's not just the mortgage costs. You have closing costs, you have maintenance, you have maybe HOA fees, you have property taxes, you got all that. Look, I don't recommend renting forever. I think for the very long term, it makes sense to buy. But right now, the way the prices are, it could potentially make sense to rent. And if it's only temporary, you might as well get something smaller, like a one-bedroom apartment. And it starts to make even more financial sense to do this. Because you can look at the difference of the cost. First of all, say a $900,000 house, it's going to cost you about $5,500. Assume you do 20% down on a $900,000 house. That's an upfront payment. You could be investing that. So if you add that opportunity cost, everything together, it probably costs you about $6,200 a month to buy. And you compare that to a $2,800 a month one-bedroom apartment. That's a difference of $3,400 a month. Even if you're getting a very conservative 4% a year, after 5 years, that would be a difference of $177,000. That would be in your pocket. And if I'm right and home prices come down, you would have an extra $177,000 instead of having your home price go down $270,000. So that right there is a $447,000 difference. I know that's not a guaranteed scenario, but it could happen. You could have an extra $177,000 cash during a time when prices are low, when it's a very good time to buy. That could potentially happen. Now, if I'm wrong and you buy, yeah, home prices could continue going up for a little while. They're already so expensive. Like, I don't know how people are affording these prices and at these interest rates. It doesn't make sense. So I don't see them going much higher. You just have to think, what's more likely? Are home prices going to go significantly higher from here? Or are they going to come back to reality and come down maybe 30% or more? So when you're considering whether buying or renting, first consider where you're at. You have to look at the price to rent ratio in your area. Then consider how long you're going to stay there. If you're planning on moving in 5 years, you probably should not buy. And also look at the price to income ratios. Nationally, it's pretty terrible. If the price to income ratios are very high, they're the highest that they've been in over 70 years, meaning they're the most unaffordable in 70 years. If the price to income ratio is high, like it is now, there's a fair chance it's going to come back to reality. So again, I don't recommend renting forever, but there are certain times, like I think right now, where it could make more sense to rent temporarily.